whoever you are, whoever you love. Whatever your image of the holy, you are beloved, and you are welcome. And now, let us enter into a time of worship by lighting the flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I've asked Ruby to light the chalice. Today's topic is spiritual mysticism. Every religion has a mystical branch, and for Islam, that is the branch called Sufism. As today is the first day of Ramadan and Women's History Month, we want to share a poem from Rabia of Basra, the first female Sufi saint. Some background about Rabia. She was born in 717 CE. She was a slave as a young woman and was freed from her owner, recognized when the owner recognized her devotion and her piety. Rabia's views are based on God's compassion, that there is no clear distinction between good and bad, for it is reduced to unity. She preached that the aim of a Sufi's life is to pursue grace and happiness, which is impossible unless the person serves humanity. From Rabia of Basra. In my soul, there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church, where I kneel. Prayer should bring us to an altar where no walls or names exist. Is there not a region of love where the sovereignty is illumined nothing, where ecstasy gets poured into itself and becomes lost, where the wing is fully alive but has no mind or body? In my soul, there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church that dissolve in God. And now let us say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
So, as Gary Ray mentioned, you might have heard her mention that March is Women's History Month. Did you know that? Yeah, maybe. So I am going to share with you guys about a few fantastic ladies who were important way back in the day and today. You're going to celebrate the person who invented French toast. All right, Halliday, you might need to have a conversation with me later about that, because I am in the dark about the invention of French toast. But I would love to share with you about a lady that lived like almost 1,000 years ago. Almost 1,000 years ago. I can't even imagine 1,000 years ago. And her name was Hildegard. Now we say Saint Hildegard of Bingen. Kathryn? Bingen. Ah, oh, thank you, Kathryn. Saint Hildegard. So here was a lady like 1,000 years ago who knew that she wanted to learn and teach and do something a little bit special with her life. Do you know what a lot of ladies were expected to do 1,000 years ago? Well, Eli, what was that? Marry and have children. Yeah, kind of mostly, yeah. But Hildegard decided, oh, no. There was something deep inside of her that spoke to her. She knew, that she wanted to investigate the mystery and the awe of the universe around her. She had a lot to say. So at 15, she became a nun, and she used her opportunity to be a nun to explore and learn and teach. And she became a scientist and a poet and a composer. And did all these many great things about the natural world and exploring and teaching, and became the head of an abbey, right? To do these things and to teach others about it. So do you think a lot of women were doing that 1,000 years ago?
No.
No way. So she had the courage to stand up and say, I'm going to do something different. I have a voice deep inside of me that shows me that I can investigate the mystery of the world, and I can share that. Huh. Pretty big deal. I think she was a pretty courageous person. We're going to fast forward a little bit now, because though St. Hildegard was fantastic, she was not a Unitarian. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to Reverend Antoinette Brown Blackwell, who actually didn't start out as a Unitarian, but she was the first recognized ordained minister in the United States of America. So she did not live 1,000 years ago. She lived a couple hundred years ago, but still, the world was telling ladies, if you think you know a lot about God or the mysteries of the universe, why don't you just sit in church and listen, and the men up here will do the preaching. And she wasn't really satisfied with that. She knew that she was in touch with something that she wanted to share, that she wanted to share with the world. So she decided she wanted to go to school to become a minister. And the school said, well, we've never let a woman do this before, so maybe, but you kind of have to sit in the back and you can't tell anyone about it. Just sit in the class and listen, and then we'll let you in. But she didn't really want to do that, did she? So she took her learning, and she did great things with it. She did some writing for Frederick Douglass's newspaper. She went preaching around and was a public speaker and spoke for many women's rights organizations. And eventually, in 1878, became a Unitarian and was recognized by the American Unitarian Association as a minister. So we're going to fast forward again to last year. The Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt became the first openly queer and women of color president of the Unitarian Universalist Association. So she's a daughter of immigrants. And again, out of 10 presidents of the Unitarian Universalist Association, only 2 have been women so far. So again, she's a trailblazer, just like those other 2 ladies ahead of her. Reverend Sophia is a storyteller and a musician and a poet. And now she's kind of the head of the UUs right now. So all of these fantastic, amazing women knew that even though there are folks in their time saying, that's not for you, maybe you should sit down and listen here to what we have to say, they knew that there was a voice inside of them that they should listen to. They knew that they had gifts to share with the world. And what I love about being a UU is that we don't have to sit and listen to people telling us to sit down, right? We can listen to the voice inside of us because we can all be in touch with the mystery.
Yay. So you're saying I can throw this onto the ground and run everything?
Well, that's the thing. It comes with responsibility, too. Oh. So don't be afraid to listen to that voice inside you.
Yay.
And to be in touch with the mystery in the universe around you, and to explore, because that's kind of our jobs, and we can share it with each other. So thank you, Holiday. Thank you to everyone who shared that story with me.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. My name is Jen Youngsun Rue. You can call me Rev Jen. I use the pronouns she and her, and this morning I'm wearing pretty much all black, and I've got a white jacket on, and I'm wearing my royal blue stole. You know, the reason that we take time to say our name and our pronouns and give a visual description is to push against the dominant culture that assumes able-bodied, cisgendered norms. In this house, we want everyone to feel recognized and valued and loved. So I'm wondering, how many of you have ever had the experience of this insight that came to them, that all is truly one? How about the awareness that the life or the living presence is in all things? Do any of you engage in spiritual practices that allow you to explore your inner landscape? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had this experience that you're out of time? You know, you lose all track of time. There is no past or future. Yeah. Have you ever had an experience of just pure being, pure awareness? How about a sense of reverence, a sense of awe, a sense of joy? Yeah. Well, I think you might be a UU mystic. I think I'm one. I have a feeling that a lot of Unitarian Universalists are modern-day mystics. And I say that because direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder are primary sources of inspiration for UUs. These experiences open our hearts, renew our spirits, transform our lives, and inspire us to social justice. Now, very broadly speaking, mysticism involves practices that bring an intense, personal experience of connection with the universe, with the ground of being, with the cosmic force, with God, or whatever name may be used for the ultimate and eternal reality. Later in the service, Kathryn Smith will share some of the medieval women mystics who inspire her. Given the historic and very real current day oppression of women by male-dominated religion, the practices of mysticism bring the freedom of an internal, direct, unmediated experience of the holy. One of our modern-day mystics is the poet Mary Oliver. Shortly before her death, she addressed an audience with a message especially intended for the young. She wanted to summarize what she had learned about life. And she put it into 3 steps. 1, pay attention. 2, be astonished. And then 3, share that astonishment. Recently, I went into the woods with a group of young adults with those instructions in mind. Without speaking, we moved slowly through the woods, paying attention, not only to the landscape around us, but also to the landscape within. And when we found something that sparked a feeling of awe or reverence or joy, we would tap the person next to us, and point. Sharing our astonishment. I know that the more I seek out experiences of wonder and mystery, the more my heart opens and my spirit is renewed. When we allow those experiences to transform our lives, it then becomes impossible to just keep it to ourselves. Because whatever good and mighty truth that a mystic discovers, it wants to be shared for the good of all beings. So come, let us discover the mystic within. Come, let us worship together. This is the blessing we cannot speak for ourselves. This is the blessing we cannot summon by our own devices, cannot shape to our own purposes, cannot bend to our own will. This is the blessing that comes when we leave behind our aloneness, when we gather together, when we turn toward one another. This is the blessing that blazes among us when we speak the words strange to our ears, when we finally listen to the chaos, when we breathe together at last. Those words by Jan Richardson open this time when we share with each other the truth of our lives, the truth of deep grief, the truth of delight, the truth of pain, the truth of joy. O wonder of wonders, O spirit of life, we leave behind our aloneness. We turn toward one another. Joy for beautiful skies yesterday, prayers for peace in the Middle East, joys to be part of the UU community. Let's weave together a prayer here in this sanctuary. As we always do, we lift up praises first. And today, praise for family, praise for community, praise for inner strength, praise today, and thanks for
The returning of the light.
the return of the light. Praise be for the return of the light. Praise for a teacher. Praise for the flowers. Praise for friendship and for music. Praise for the healers in our lives. Praise be. Now I invite you to lift up the names of the people that you're holding in your hearts, the people you love, people who are closest to you who may be struggling, or maybe they're strangers and you're still holding them in your hearts. May they be well. May they be at peace. May they be happy. O Spirit of life, source of all, ground of our very being, we praise you and thank you for life, for life. May these sharings of truth of our lives be held in love. Now I invite you into a few minutes of breathing together. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. Breathe in peace. Breathe out love. And let that be a blessing to one another.
Today's reading was written by Hildegard of Bingen, and it's titled, I Am the One. I am the one whose praise echoes on high. I adorn all the earth. I am the breeze that nurtures all things green. I encourage blossoms to flourish with ripening fruit. I am led by the Spirit to feed the purest streams. I am the rain coming from the dew that causes the grasses to laugh with the joy of life. I call forth tears, the aroma of holy work. I am the yearning for good.
Good morning. I'm Kathryn Smith. I've been with you 2 years now, and it's a joy to get to know all of you. And this presentation came out of a spirited conversation with Reverend Jen about a year ago. So I'm coming to you like a crow or a raven hopping around bringing shiny treasures to be presented. From my reading and from my experience of women of mystery, we think of mystics as people who retreat from the world, people who might be even crazy. But in the time travel of history, I have come to love these people, for they honor the energy of infinite love. A mystic dedicates a significant dose of their life energy to be in healing, in justice, in love, in their longing for God. So in this limited time, I will speak of 5 who enchanted me. And I forgot to say, I'm an older woman with white hair, wearing a dark blue dress and a green and blue shawl, and I'm built for comfort, not for speed. In the last 50 years, translations from the 12th century of the German abbess Hildegard traveled across the Atlantic, and finally, so did, for me, the recordings of her ethereal music for religious communities. I personally was entranced by this music, more free than Gregorian chant, and for women's voices, and very melodic, and that's what drew me into her. She was one of 10 children. Her family, recognizing that she was special, had her enter the household of a devout woman, Jutta, and later she joined a Benedictine community. I think she would like Eugene. She lived in the Rhine Valley, a green, verdant area full of vineyards and farms. Her writings are full of metaphors of God's energy as viriditas, a word she coined, which means the greenness of spirit. Her songs and her writings are filled with the metaphors of moisture of the soul in touch with grace. In her 40s, she began to have visions. She not only wrote about them, but she painted them. These paintings to me seem very surreal, very modern in technique, almost Dali-esque. I'll share with you a few of them. My favorite is one of herself with flames coming into her head. And the monk in the picture is her translator, who helped her turn her native German into Latin for the clergy. Another one depicts the universe as a multicolored cosmic egg. And the third one reminds me of Unitarians. It's a large red face surrounded by outstretched wings, and it's entitled The Head of God, Zealous for Justice. And the stairways in this picture represent the building of the spiritual community on earth. So, like any busy person, she squabbled with her peers, she annoyed bishops, She rebuked popes and secular leaders of her state for corruption in both the church and in the merchant community. She strove to explore faith. She wrote treatises not only on faith, but herbal medicine. She, as an abbess, started women's communities in Germany. Matthew Fox has called her one of the early Christian eco-cosmologists for her praise of sacred earth, for the entire universe as being green in God's grace. Second, I'll turn to Julian of Norwich, an Englishwoman who lived as an anchoress in the 13th century. I can't imagine the strength and discipline to live in a closed-in space attached to a church and only able to see clergy or pilgrim visitors through a little window in the stones. She had been a married householder, and the medieval demands of a woman's life probably made it impossible to live a life devoted to spirit. She also had visions in her 30s of Christ, of Mary, of grace, giving her insight and lessons. She often spoke of God as mother. She spent the rest of her life writing about these showings, as she called them, and counseling pilgrims from all over England. She's often quoted for this phrase, "And all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." Turning to Spain, Teresa of Avila was a Carmelite nun of Spain in the 1500s. She also had visions in midlife. She was intense. She was charming. She was a writer. She was a traveler. She was a reformer of church doctrine during a very dangerous time, and she also helped monasteries in decline reorganize. She may have had epilepsy, for she would fall into rapture suddenly, disturbing the equanimity of her community. My favorite passage is a nun complaining about burning the omelets while Teresa is unconscious on the floor of the kitchen. Her writings are full of the erotic metaphors of love of God. A statue by the sculptor Bernini portrays one of her visions of an angel thrusting a burning spear into her heart. Sometimes she can be hard to read with her repeated phraseologies of doctrine and the phrase, "I'm only a woman." But I suspect this had a lot to do with the threat of the Spanish Inquisition, which at the time was burning Jews, Protestants, and dissident Catholics alike. Her classic book, The Interior Castle, describes the unfolding and spiritual questing of traveling through rooms of the soul. It means a lot to me, this feminist nun, if you can carry that oxymoron, that this feminist woman who is also feisty and a mystic had a close friendship with another mystic, St. John of the Cross, who gave us the phrase, "the dark night of the soul." I would have loved to have eavesdropped on those conversations. Going back to Germany and Belgium, Mechtilde of Magdeburg was one of the beautiful spiritual poets of the Bingen movement in France, Belgium, and Germany from the 1200s up through the 1800s. We don't know much about them in this country, but scholars are bringing up a lot about the lives of these clusters of women in self-sufficient communities who dedicated themselves to a spiritual life, but continued to conduct their secular activities. They came under attack from both the church and sometimes other of the secular communities because they were self-sufficient and would compete with the merchants. Mechtilde lived in the 1200s, and she experienced what she called greetings of the Holy Spirit beginning at age 12. Her masterpiece of writing, of teaching, and her experience of what she called the flaming light of the Godhead is comprised of poetry, letters, parables, advice, and she uses the courtly love and culture of her day in her imagery and her conversations with God. O Lord, who made this book? I made it in my powerlessness, for I cannot restrain myself as to my gifts. What shall be the name of this book, which is for your glory alone? It shall be called a flowing light of the Godhead into all hearts that live free of hypocrisy. So I want to turn away last from the Christianity of Europe to one of my favorite mystics, a Hindu woman of northern India from the 16th century. Those of you who like Rumi would also like Mira's poetry. She is as famous among the world of poets and in the East as Rumi is. In the Bhakti traditions of India, devotion to God can be passionate words, can be celebratory music, can be dance, can be wanderings of ecstasy. Mira was devoted to the god Krishna, even in her childhood. And as a Rajput princess, she was forced to marry, but she soon left that marriage. Historians cannot closely document her work as variations in songs and poems of love are performed all over India, celebrations of love, celebrations of the abandonment of the material life, celebrations of the sensual beauty of India as part of God's creation. This is one of her poems. He has stained me the color of raven. He has stained me, beating a clay two-headed drum at both ends. Like a Nauch girl, I dance before the sadhus. Back in town, I'm called crazy, a love slut. They incited the prince who ordered me poison, but I drained his cup without missing a step. For Mira's Lord is the true prince. He has stained me the color of raven. Birth after birth, she is his. These women, who I call astronauts of the soul, Hildegard, Julian, Teresa, Mechthild, Mira, and many others, they broke boundaries for God. We could call their experiences hyper-excited states. We could call them transformations of consciousness. For they show us that in ecstasy and divine love, divine communion with the sacred energy of spirit and earth is possible. That cosmic consciousness is in our very molecules, and that these molecules dance in the dance of love. Thank you.
Now let's say the words of our closing together. We extinguish this flame, not the light of truth, the warmth of community, but the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, may the one light of life shine brightly upon you. May the Holy bless you and keep you and be gracious unto you. Go in peace, my friends. Go in love. And please, as you go, take a few minutes to greet your neighbors around you. Bye-bye.